I have wonderful memories of growing up in Aleppo. Our extended family lived in a house that had a large courtyard with a fountain and a garden in the middle. The house was interconnected with the homes of our aunts and uncles. It was in the heart of Al-Farafra, a quiet quarter with narrow streets not far from the citadel. School was close to our home, and my siblings and I would walk to school with the principal, who was one of our aunts. I had young and motivated teachers who thought that I was good at writing, history, and math. In early summer, when the city's cobblestone streets felt hotter, our entire family would get into big black cars for the annual ride to the countryside. Our farmhouse was a large two-story stone home that my grandfather had built in the middle of fruit orchards. The rest of our extended family also had farm homes close by. During the long summer days, my siblings, cousins, and I would play in the shade or watch the farmers harvest the nearby wheat and barley fields. We would help collect apples, pomegranates, grapes, figs, and cherries from the orchards. And we would eagerly watch when fresh bread and cheese were made, and when quails and other birds were grilled over open pits. We rode donkeys, chased pigeons, and swam in the watering pool used for irrigation. Men and women would ride horses across the fields to go on visits, and the children would follow them on horse-drawn carts. After sunset, the men would gather on one side of the terrace to play cards and backgammon under the coolness of the grapevine trellis. Heated discussions were usually about the French occupation and the Syrian politicians who opposed it. In another part of the terrace, the women would chat, play cards, and join in singing when my mother played the oud. Along with the other children, I would huddle close to our grandmother Fattoum, who was a great storyteller. By the time I was 14, I had one older sister and 3 younger siblings. One day, we were all dressed up to go visit a family friend who had recently returned from studying art in Italy and had opened an art studio and a school. The studio was on the 2nd floor of an old house near the citadel. It had a large room with a covered balcony and tall arched windows with ornate ironwork. While our uncle was talking to the well-dressed young man whose studio we were visiting, we shyly looked at the sculptures and paintings around the studio. As if to test us, the young man pointed to a self-portrait and teasingly asked, "Who can guess how I painted this?" My sisters and cousins hesitated to answer. Standing behind them, I daringly offered that he did it by looking at himself in either a mirror or a photo. This is when I met Wahbi. I would later learn that he had shown exceptional artistic abilities since he was a child. When he enrolled at Aleppo's first high school, the city's famed Tajhiz, his father took him to have his commemorative photo taken by a well-known Armenian photographer. As the photographer was adjusting his camera, Wahbi sat with a book in his hand, while an Italian song played on the phonograph. He was fascinated by the studio's setting and intrigued by the photographer's work. A few days later, Wahbi returned to collect his prints, and he brought with him the portrait he had drawn of the photographer. When Wahbi was finishing high school, he led a student demonstration opposing the French governor's visit to the school. The armed French recruits chased and clobbered the students. The resulting bruises only reinforced Wahbi's growing national beliefs and aspirations. Wahbi's father was a respected city elder and distinguished tradesman. He had traveled to Europe and completed the pilgrimage to Mecca. Hajj Ahmed, as he was known, had a tolerant view of the world that was rooted in a long Rifai Sufi family tradition. Wahbi's mother, Asma, came from a conservative Turkish family from Gaziantep. She was a kind but reserved person who rarely showed deep emotions. Hajj Ahmed understood his son's talent and encouraged his passion for art. Working with the Italian consul in Aleppo, he arranged for Wahbi to travel to Italy to study art at a time when no one from Syria had done so before. In 1932, Wahbi was not yet 18 when he took the train from Aleppo to Beirut and sailed on a steamship to Italy. In addition to Arabic, he spoke Turkish and French. When Wahbi arrived in Rome, the adolescent who had recently left Aleppo for the first time was mesmerized by the city. Upon enrolling at the prestigious Accademia Real di Belle Arti, he was admitted to the Carlo Siviero Art Studio on the basis of his early work portfolio. Siviero was a well-established artist and one of the school's most respected professors. He was impressed by Wahbi's talent and took a personal interest in guiding his artistic development while challenging his abilities along the way.
E tra i due nasce con tutta probabilità una simpatia e una sintonia artistica che si manterrà intatta nel tempo e si consoliderà nel tempo fino a interrompersi alla morte di Carlo Siviero nel 1953. E probabilmente Wahbi è testimone di una importante trasformazione urbanistica della capitale. I monumenti millenari della storia millenaria di Roma ora giganteggiano isolati, collegando idealmente la Roma imperiale alla Roma fascista.
his years in Italy, Wahbi witnessed the rise of Mussolini's cult of personality and the political myths that marked fascist totalitarian rule. In the midst of all the political changes that Rome was going through, he remained focused on the city's history, culture, and its rich artistic legacy. In every part of Rome, he found a significance that augmented his artistic growth. His academic achievements won him scholarships that gave him the opportunity during the summers to travel around Italy and also visit Greece's main historic sites. His drawings from that period reflect his early ability to interpret scenery in a poetic and graceful manner. During Wahbi's last year at the Academia, Siviero had become increasingly proud of his students' talent and had two major challenges for him. He arranged for Wahbi to work at Rome's Basilica di Sant'Agostino near Piazza Navona. For a month, Wahbi worked standing on a tall scaffold high above the pews. With very little ambient light, he applied himself to producing a full-size pastel painting replica of a cherub from Raphael's famous Profeta Isaiah fresco. Siviero was delighted at the result.
Ma riesce con una grande maestria e abilità a restituire la morbida torsione del putto insieme al suo sguardo assorto, rendendo questo disegno qualcosa di più intenso e sensibile di una semplice esercitazione accademica.
A few weeks after Wahbi completed that assignment, Siviero made it possible for him to be granted the rare permission to set up his easel in a rotunda on the second floor of the Vatican Museum. Working within a cordon-off area for close to 2 months, he simultaneously completed a full-size graphite drawing of Apoxyomenos, the well-known marble statue by Lysippus, and another full-size drawing of the ancient famed Greek statue known as the Torso del Belvedere.
I chiaroscuri, le ombreggiature restituiscono meravigliosamente le masse scultoree con abilità tecnica straordinaria.
Upon graduating from the Academia in 1936, his academic achievements and a romantic relation with a beautiful Italian aristocrat tempted him to stay in Rome. But his desire to contribute to building a modern Syria took him back home. Shortly after his return to Syria, Wahbi's modern hopes and aspirations came face to face with reality. Aleppo had new tree-lined avenues and electrical streetcars. New residential areas had been created outside the old city. And the old Ottoman governor's palace had been turned into the city's first museum. Despite the changes, the French authorities were still governing with an iron fist, unwilling to open the country's path to independence. Although only a few opportunities existed for work in painting and sculpture, Wahbi's father helped him open his studio and create Syria's first art school. After Wahbi won some important artistic commissions, a position was specially created for him to teach art at Aleppo's Tajhiz High School. His classes quickly provided him an opportunity to introduce his students to Syria's rich cultural history and talk about the country's modern aspirations. His studio soon became a popular salon where writers, poets, musicians, and free-thinking activists met and voiced their opposition to French rule. After Wahbi was severely wounded during a peaceful demonstration, French troops broke into his studio and set it on fire. Most of his paintings and sculptures from that period were destroyed. The few that were salvaged show an early ability to distance himself from the rigidity of his academic training. The freedom of his strokes and the vibrancy of the colors that he made, and sometimes mixed with other mediums, were very modern and reflect a creativity and artistic abilities that I was too young to appreciate until much later. Wahbi and I were married in 1944, less than a year after I visited his studio. I was 15 and he was 30. Until then, my youth had been joyful and worry-free. Without having made the choice, I was suddenly thrown into the life of a man who I intuitively knew was like no other. A few months after the wedding, Wahbi was appointed Inspector General of Historic Monuments and Sites. We moved to Damascus, which at the time was much livelier than Aleppo. His new position matched his many interests and required him to travel throughout Syria. His surveys of the remnants of ancient kingdoms, Hellenic ruins, Roman monuments, Crusader forts, and early Muslim sites augmented his love of archaeology, appreciation of history, and passion for art and architecture. During this period, he led the early restoration work of the historic desert city of Palmyra. While living in Damascus, we attended conferences in Beirut, which felt a lot more French-influenced than Damascus. We also traveled by car to Jerusalem, where British rule felt differently regulated than the French colonial presence in Syria. Between travels, Wahbi found time to write and teach art. Among the students he mentored were future artists such as فتحي قباوة, فاتح مدرس, لؤي كيالي, and طالب ياسشي. Together, they pioneered the Nahda, the Levant's contemporary cultural and arts renaissance.
Gli oli, gli acquarelli e i disegni in matita di grafite con te degli anni 40, realizzati da Wahbi Al-Hariri nella sua terra, la Siria, esprimono il desiderio di ricercare, di ritrovare le sue radici storiche, culturali, familiari e spirituali. Il disegno in grafite del Tempio di Baal, la bellezza, l'armonia, l'equilibrio architettonico di questo monumento così famoso. E le colonne appaiono come un miraggio nel deserto appena accennato sullo sfondo.
In 1948, 2 years after Syria's independence from France, the American consul informed Wahbi that his talent had won him a scholarship to study architecture at Yale University. Unable to travel at that time, he later received another grant to complete advanced studies in art and architecture at the prestigious École Nationale Supérieure des Beaux-Arts in Paris, as well as historic preservation at the École du Louvre. Of our families were in total shock. I stuck to my plan, and with my father's support, I too got on the train to Beirut, and from there on a steamship to Marseille, and then on a night train. In 1948, life in post-war Paris was not what I had imagined. The city looked dark and congested. Wahbi's priority was to spend as much time as needed for him to excel at the Beaux-Arts.
L'École des Beaux-Arts de Paris est formée la majorité des architectes en France au XXe siècle. C'est une école qui, globalement, organisait son fonctionnement autour de deux formats, si l'on peut dire. Tout d'abord, les cours dits plutôt théoriques. D'une autre part, les ateliers qui permettaient aux élèves de développer des compositions sur des sujets donnés, donc les concours étaient fictifs.
To gain advanced placement at the Beaux-Arts, Wahbi had to demonstrate his artistic competence by completing an intricate ink drawing of a Corinthian capital.
ce chapiteau corinthien qui est assez beau et qui témoigne bien de son savoir justement graphique.
His remarkable rendition got him accepted at the much-coveted Pont-Trémoly-le-Comte atelier, where he gained the attention and the lasting friendship of the school's two most eminent professors.
Emmanuel Pont-Trémoly était un architecte, le premier architecte à diriger l'école des beaux-arts de Paris dans les années 1930 et quelqu'un qui avait vraiment une grande culture, qui était très intéressé par le relevé, par l'archéologie. C'était une figure très respectée pour son savoir, pour ses responsabilités aussi au sein de la profession, de l'académie.
To earn us additional income by taking on small jobs in radio and fashion. I made friends who helped us when needed, and many of them remained close to us for decades. Wahbi was surprised at my ease at communicating with people, and that gift would help us throughout the years. As I learned to find my way around Paris, I discovered that the city wasn't, after all, as dark as I saw it at first. The historical buildings, beautiful parks, quaint streets, impressive sculptures, and peaceful riverbanks had a unique charm. Its lively cafes, trendy fashions, diverse music, creative art exhibits, entertaining plays, and glimmering cinemas gave living there a special vibrancy. At the Beaux-Arts, Wahbi excelled year after year. Along with his academic achievements, he enjoyed his atelier's life to the fullest. Unlike the formal Wahbi that I knew, he embraced the school's sometimes eccentric traditions and took part in the many public festivities that its students were known for.
Voilà, une école qui brassait une vraie diversité et qui a su bâtir aussi sa réputation, il faut peut-être le dire également, sur son esprit très festif.
Even when the three of us would spend time together, I felt that his heart and mind were primarily focused on being at the top of his classes. During his last term, he worked day and night to finish his assignments. When he graduated in 1954, he had finished the school's requirements in record time and was awarded the prestigious National Medal of Excellence. It was the highest architectural honor that a non-French student could receive. As we contemplated the next phase of our lives, I was no longer the 19-year-old girl who stepped off the train 6 years earlier with a child in her arms. I greatly missed my family, but also felt that Paris had adopted me and I was happy to stay. Wahbi's professor, André Lecomte, insisted that he joins his prestigious firm. But Wahbi had different plans. His heart remained attached to the Middle East, and he was eager to return. Beyond his artistic ambitions, his dream was to contribute to building a Levant that was rooted in its history and traditional values, but also able to adopt the best that the modern West had to offer. A few weeks after Wahbi graduated, we took an Air France Constellation flight back home. It was the first time that we were on a plane. The plush leather seats had white starched head sleeves. The attentive crew wore well-tailored uniforms and white gloves. Meals were served in elegant porcelain plates with silverware. During the long flight, I felt equally happy and nervous, in anticipation of seeing our families after a 6-year absence. through most of that period, Damascus was a wonderfully livable city, where the old and new parts combined in a harmonious manner. The city was home to diverse communities, and its urban core was surrounded by a wide green belt of orchards and farms. It had an active cultural life that included exhibits and performances from around the world. From Damascus, Beirut and its fashionable stores, sandy beaches, stylish restaurants, and green mountains was also only a 2-hour drive. After many months of preparations, Wahbi's extensive architectural and artistic work was to be further recognized through a comprehensive exhibition at the National Museum of Damascus. On the morning of the opening, a military coup took place. Martial law was declared. Tanks blocked the main intersections. A strict curfew was enforced, and the exhibition was cancelled. During the following 2 years, competing foreign political interests and constant military meddlings shook the country's stabilities. Brilliant academics, outspoken journalists, talented artists, accomplished professionals, and successful industrialists were systematically harassed and increasingly treated as undesirables. Wahbi's professional successes triggered resentment among the new ruling class. Their open animosity and the increasingly unstable conditions of the country made it difficult for him to remain there. In 1965, after much hesitation, Wahbi accepted a special invitation to visit Saudi Arabia. The country was in the process of developing, and he was intrigued by the new opportunities that existed. Shortly after his first visit, he was offered the position of Chief Architect of Public Projects. During his first year there, our son Mukhlus moved to Paris to study architecture at the Beaux-Arts, and I stayed in Damascus. Wahbi would write lengthy letters from Jeddah that expressed how much he enjoyed being there and contributing to the country's new growth. He would also describe the beauty of the Red Sea, the historic character of the old city, and the genuine nature of the people. His narrative sounded so different from what I had heard. When he insisted that I join him, I did so with much hesitation. My Middle East Airlines flight landed around midnight. The airport was rudimentary. The humidity when I got off the plane felt impenetrable, and the roads were dusty and dark. When we got home, there was no air conditioning, and the heat was suffocating. When I opened the shutters in the morning, the beautiful sea described in his letters was a ripple-less surface that faded into a densely hazy horizon with little color and no breeze. From the shallow waters emanated a pungent smell that intensified at night. In the early 1960s, Jeddah was a mostly dormant port city that came to life during the annual pilgrimage to Mecca. Most of the streets were only partially paved and sidewalks were mostly absent. The old part of the city looked run down, and most of the newer buildings looked poorly built. Trees and green areas were noticeably absent. Wahbi's position required him to travel extensively, and I would be left alone for days with little to do and no place to go. During daytime, because of intense solar radiations, only a couple of dull local radio stations could be heard. After sunset, the radio would finally come alive with faraway stations.
It's 22 hours Greenwich Mean Time.
I slowly made friends and discovered that the old city merchants were polite and eager to help. As a non-Saudi woman, I was not expected to wear a veil and could walk in the market without being harassed for doing so. Women, however, could not drive, and that limited my movements. Our main outing was the weekly outdoor dinner and film night at the Diplomatic Club. Wahbi's responsibilities required him to oversee projects in far locations, and his absences from Jeddah could not be planned in advance. To keep my sanity, I would sometimes travel to visit Lemخلص in Paris. I always felt great anxiety when I had to fly back to Jeddah. A few years later, we moved to Medina, where Wahbi took on designing the master plan and buildings for the new university. He saw it as an opportunity to create a grand modern learning environment that would be in harmony with the city's spiritual significance. His artistic vision clashed with the rigidity of some of the directors. Their highly conservative mindsets were not open to innovation, and it took Wahbi much effort to bring them to understand his approach and finally embrace his designs. We later moved to Riyadh, which at the time was a much smaller city than Jeddah and Medina. Riyadh had remained isolated and was a much more traditional environment. As a Muslim woman, I was a lot more restricted in my movements than were other foreigners, and I was increasingly frustrated at not being able to be as productive as I wanted to be. Wahbi was torn between his attachment to Arabia and the reality that conservative bureaucrats did not appreciate his artistic talent. And so, with suspicion, his efforts to publicize the country's rich but dormant heritage. In 1969, after 5 years living there, Wahbi finally agreed to take a break from Arabia. We spent time in the United States, France, and Lebanon. At the time, Beirut was a vibrant cosmopolitan city at the intersection of East and West. It felt European in many ways, but was also deeply rooted in its Levantine traditions. Intellectuals and artists from all over the Arab world called Beirut their home. Its diverse newspapers, magazines, and book publishers enjoyed a freedom of expression not found in the surrounding countries. Some of our family and friends who had settled there welcomed us warmly. And the country's lush mountains, charming ports, and historic sites inspired Wahbi.
Wahbi Al-Hariri is called the last classes because he was trained in Europe, in art, in architecture, in archaeology, all the proportion of classical paintings. However, he was not molded in tradition. He had a fresh approach. In his watercolor and pastel, especially watercolors, I can see post classes kind of a connection with Cézanne.
No place in Lebanon was ever too far. Wahbi could easily drive in the morning to set his easel in a remote mountain area and stay at a local hotel or be back home at night. During a 2-year stay in Lebanon, he completed a large collection of colorful paintings with a color palette and light transparency not found in his other works.
He was always looking at the new approaches. Every time I look at his work, I can explore one more angle of him.
The Palace of Baytudeen in Lebanon. That was really powerful work, wonderful rich use of colors, seeing his ability to take a landscape and give it almost an ethereal quality.
You see that some areas he would like to fly. On those times, you can see his free spirit, especially in watercolors. He has made a magnificent expression of artistic work.
Despite the many opportunities offered to him in Lebanon, Europe, and the United States, Wahbi's heart remained attached to Arabia. Overlooking previous challenges, Wahbi returned to Riyadh, determined to pursue his exploration of the country's still little-known cultural heritage and natural wonders. He felt deeply attached to the desert's beauty and cherished the chanting of the dunes at sunset. Whenever his official duties allowed it, Wahbi would travel to remote areas and set his easel in the dust and heat, to the amazement of the local Bedouins and villagers. Adults and children would curiously surround him and watch as he worked. Village elders would frequently guide him to local sites and invite him to share their modest homes. In more isolated areas, he liked sleeping under the stars on his prayer rug, with his sketch pads, books, and shortwave radio nearby.
When I first met Mr. Al-Hariri was in the late 70s. I just was taken by, first of all, what a distinguished, handsome gentleman he was, and very charming and very kind. You could just see that in his eyes. I was able to go a number of years later to Saudi Arabia, and he said, well, give me your day. I'd like to show you around a bit. And it was just that kind of generosity of time. He was a very busy man, but he just was happy to give up a day to show me around. He was really a remarkable man.
From his travels emerged a large collection of drawings, paintings, and sketches that reflect an artistic dimension and a purity of feelings where heat and dust do not exist.
He uses pencil, he uses watercolors, he uses oil. Whatever he uses, it just becomes a perfect painting. As an artist, I have really benefited of his technique of doing light and shade. He is one of the most talented artists worldwide.
He really uncovered the rich and diverse history of Saudi Arabia. He had a kind of magic in the way that he expressed the reality and the spirituality of these places.
In 1982, an early admirer of Wahbi's work offered him the opportunity to publish his main drawings of Arabia as a folio book. For Wahbi, only Fratelli Alinari, the famed Florentine publishing house, could do the work. To print the book's large pages according to Wahbi's high standards, the house of Alinari revived an old glass plate hand press that had not been used for decades. Wahbi and I stayed in Florence, while every page of the book was individually printed under his watchful eyes. When he saw the slightest imperfection, Wahbi would mark the page and later tear it to ensure that it would never be circulated. During the many months that it took to finish the book, we lived in a grand apartment not far from Alinari's offices. It was once part of a princely palazzo and had tall ornate plaster ceilings and sumptuous woodwork. Wahbi's Italian fluency made him welcome in every part of Florence. Whenever he was not overseeing the printing process, he would set his easel around the city and work there for hours. Nearby cafes would frequently offer him refreshments and snacks, while onlookers watched him work. Many would later write and send him photos. When the book was finally completed, the city of Florence hosted a formal launching event at the historic Palazzo Strozzi. As I listened to the speeches, I felt that years of efforts and sacrifices were being rewarded. Most importantly, I knew how much it meant to him. The talented young man who studied in Rome some 40 years earlier was being honored by the capital of the Renaissance. The publication of the traditional architecture of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia brought about worldwide recognition of Wahbi's artistic talent.
Wahbi Al-Hariri made an immense impression on me. The man reminded me of the classicists, animated by humanist values and with a multidisciplinary perspective on the world around him. The art captivated me by its power to put still subjects into motion using various media. There is a certain discipline in his style, yet his strokes evoke great freedom and deep passion at the same time. The medium of graphite in particular is the most impressive of all. It brings together the artist's exceptional talent and his keen eye for the nuances in the world around him.
It also attracted the attention of Dr. Essen Atil, who was the highly respected curator of Islamic art at the Smithsonian Institution's Freer Gallery in Washington, D.C., where Mukhlus was living. When Mukhlus arranged for Wahbi and Essen to meet, there was an immediate bond between these two people who had dedicated their lives to art and culture. Essen was a remarkable person and a refined scholar who saw Wahbi's work as an artistic milestone and offered to organize and curate an exhibition of his drawings. The exhibition opened in October 1984, and it was the first time that a living artist was honored with a solo exhibition at the Smithsonian.
This is the crown jewel of all of the world-class museums in the nation's capital for researcher, scholar, academic, architect, and artist to have a distinctive one-person show at the Smithsonian was at the time unprecedented.
The exhibition held in the art gallery of the Smithsonian Castle building attracted thousands of visitors, and later traveled to other museums in the United States.
This was a first-time experience for even the most accomplished scholars and academics and authors and researchers into the cultural side of Arab history. So it expanded their horizons, but more than the intellectual was the emotional side. That's how it affected me. Not just my head, not just my heart, but my spirit and my soul. And it has remained with me all these decades.
As Wahbi's work gained recognition, he was received by world dignitaries and applauded in the press. I hoped that it would entice him to spend more time in the US, where we could live with fewer intellectual restrictions and no artistic limitation.
We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Wahbi's heart, however, was still in Arabia, where his interest in archaeology, art, and culture remained captive. After Wahbi completed a commission to develop the initial design for the Jeddah City Museum, we moved back to Riyadh, where a special royal decree gave him the rare privilege to work in his areas of interest, free from any bureaucratic obstructions. In the late 1980s, Wahbi and Mukhlus embarked on 2 new book projects that had them traveling throughout Arabia. Their efforts yielded thousands of photos, sketches, and drawings, and volumes of written pages. The 2 books, The Heritage of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the Asir Heritage and Civilization, were published a few months apart in 1990. The books included a wealth of historic and artistic information. They were the first scholarly publications of their kind to have been entirely documented, photographed, illustrated, written, and designed by a team rooted in the Levant and the US. The broader content of the heritage of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia gained it very wide distribution. The book later served as the storyline for Saudi Arabia's first national museum in Riyadh. In recognition of his artistic achievements, Wahbi received many commendations. And in 1991, France awarded him the highly regarded distinction of Chevalier des Arts et des Lettres. Soon after the books were published, Wahbi and Mukhlus were about to start a lecture tour around the United States when the first Gulf War erupted.
Just 2 hours ago, Allied air forces began an attack on military targets in Iraq.
Like many intellectuals who worked toward improving the future of the Arab world, Wahbi was shocked by the devastation and the suffering that the war caused. He was also extremely disappointed by the Arab government's inability to avoid the war, and felt deeply hurt by the latent prejudices that surfaced in the Western press. We frequently discussed how a growing current of intolerance among Muslims distorted the essence of Islam. To help revive Wahbi's motivations, Mukhlus came up with a new project that would bring Wahbi and me to travel to some of the most significant historic mosques of the world. The internet did not exist, but through scholarly publications, major libraries, and multiple contacts around the world, Wahbi and Mukhlus prepared a list of about 50 possible sites. Shortly before our first trip, Wahbi was diagnosed with advanced colon cancer. But he insisted on proceeding with the project. While undergoing treatment in Washington, Wahbi would spend time drawing the city's main monuments.
He is so passionate and so driven. The way he crops, the way he frames his work, what he chooses to put in and out of that frame, and the softness to his brush strokes or to his pencil strokes definitely create a sense of drama. You know, you can feel the passion within these spaces.
As in other places, he would set his easel around Washington and work for hours, surrounded by onlookers who would later send him meaningful letters and photos. During pauses in treatment, he and I traveled from Spain to China to visit the selected historic mosque sites. Many locations in Africa were difficult to reach. The falling of the Soviet Union made travel through Central Asia full of uncertainties. China was still a dormant giant, and foreigners traveling without constraints was unheard of. In some countries, there were times where we could barely find clean water or a place to sleep. Even buying food was sometimes not possible. Despite the travel difficulties and the physical pain that he endured, Wahbi would sometimes insist on prolonging our stay in a location for several days in order to draw the site from the best angle and with the right light.
He sat there patiently, probably for hours at a time, drawing each of these monuments in a very loving way and conveying their spirit as well as the reality. The graphite drawings have a timeless quality. They remind us of a long tradition of representing architecture and art, going back to the Grand Tour in the 18th century and the romantic watercolors of the 19th. But they have the feeling that these are eternal buildings. They are somehow pinned down in an ideal way. All of the extraneous elements have been stripped away, and what we are left with is the beauty of the architecture.
As his illness advanced, he became weaker, and we couldn't finish visiting all the sites that we wanted to. Through sheer will, personal discipline, and spiritual strength, he was able to complete in record time a large number of drawings and sketches that express with great sensitivity the rich heritage shared by millions of people around the world, and the spiritual tolerance that guided Wahbi throughout his life.
Clearly, towards his later life, he definitely does more with graphite, but he still sprinkles in, watercolors here and there. That is not just the work of someone who could be considered a classicist, but a true Renaissance man that wants to keep pushing the boundaries, wants to keep learning, wants to keep exploring various forms of art. And I think that is what I find so fascinating about the retrospective collection.
Shortly before his death, in 1994, he and Mukhlus named his last collection The Spiritual Edifices of Islam.
What a gift, what a treasure to be savored by any and all who can see it. Too many, in the United States in particular, perceive of parts of the Arab world as gas stations, not as countries. They perceive them as mountains of money, not as the heirs, the legacies of extraordinarily rich culture and civilization to which we're all indebted.
The collection, along with a large retrospective of his work, was shown at the Smithsonian in 1999 and has since been showcased at other museums around the world.
I really was pleased that the area I lived in the United States had an artist of this quality and kind. It's something that represents the diversity and tolerance and artistic ability that we should be very pleased to have.
What we have is not just a bridge. We have the works of someone standing at both ends of the bridge. He was on the giving side, he was on the receiving side. And what is between the two are his works, his legend, his legacy. He's all three. Not just the bridge, he's at both ends of the bridge.
From the time we first met, I knew that my life with Wahbi would not be an easy one. Our complex relationship overcame many challenges that at times seemed insurmountable. There were many difficulties along the way, but we also shared many wonderful times. Wahbi was a gifted artist with beautiful hands and an intensely penetrating gaze. He sought beauty in everything and greatly admired mankind's ability to reason and gift to create. He never saw his work as valuable objects. He saw them as reflections of the beauty that we encounter amidst our fleeting reality. As I think about the many paintings, sketches, and photos that I preserved during a lifetime of travels through more than 30 countries, I know that it was all worth it.